All right, TCP process. Remember, we are connection oriented and we are reliable. Okay? So we have what's called a three-way open. So here's my client. I'm going to reverse side, sorry. And here's my server. All right? So my client first sends what's called a SYN message. Okay? A SYN just means open a connection. Because remember, we want a connection here. And again here, ephemeral, source port, well-known destination port, right? To the server. I don't need to put that on there, do I? Okay. The server sends back a SYN, which is also like, hey, I want to open to, and an acknowledgement of the first SYN. Because remember, we're reliable here. So again, if the client here doesn't hear back, so this is like time, I guess, down here on the sides. If the client doesn't hear back, they'll resend the SYN. Okay, so we get the SYN in the ACK, and then the client will send back another acknowledgement. And now the connection is open. Now the connection is open, and we can just share data. We can just start sending data and data and data back, okay? So now if I'm the client again, I have a web server I want, or a web page I wanted to download, and so I'm going to send back an HTTP request in a TCP segment, and I should get back, well, I'll just write here. I'm going to get back an ACK, so an acknowledgement that it got the HTTP request, and then it's going to send back the data itself. Okay. So again, this request is in the data field of my segment, and then this response is in the data field of that segment. Okay. And the acknowledgements are, it checks for, the server again checks for errors in it, and it sends back that it was acknowledged. So that's fun. We've also seen this part here. Let me just sort of continue this down. If we keep going down, I'll do that on the blank side of the page. So if we send something, and the server doesn't respond, we are going to resend. We just resend it, okay? And then we should get back our ACK and our response. The close is a four-way close. This isn't really that exciting. It seems pretty logical to me. When we do our close, let me just move that up. We send 4 messages. Put those down there again. So we're here at the client. This was still client. And the server. So when the client is done, so I've downloaded my whole web page, I send back a fin. And the fin is just to close, right? And the funny thing is, you get, it's 4 exchanges. They acknowledge, and then they send a fin, and then we get an ACK that comes back, okay? This graceful close is going to free up the memory on both computers. Does that make sense? So while we're keeping this open, we have to keep track of all sorts of data about what's been happening during the connection. And I just want to note, for example, here. Remember, I send, for example, this HTTP request. When the server sends the acknowledgement, there's actually a code in the acknowledgement that tells it was this specific segment here that it's acknowledging. And so the server has to keep track of these. When it sends this one back, the client knows what number it needs to send back. I didn't get the ACK in here. The client knows a number to send back to the server saying, okay, I got it, that's the right one. Because remember, if the server is sending lots and lots of stuff really fast, it might take a minute for the client to respond. Same with down here. I keep forgetting to ACK, right? I still have to ACK all my stuff. So that's fun. Anyway, so that frees up the memory. We don't like our memory being taken up, because the more and more connections we have, the more and more memory it's going to use up. There is a way, if you just want to abruptly close, I'll just put that here. So this is the equivalent of hanging up the phone. It's called an RST, and that's just reset. There are no acts to that. Remember, normally on a close we acknowledge all the fins, so everyone's happy here. With a reset, that's the connection's just abruptly terminated. Okay? There's no waiting for an ACK. And the fun thing about that is it just works right then. This is the equivalent of hitting stop on your web browser. So I just hit stop. You know, I'm downloading something and it kind of gets stuck. I just hit stop. I'm not going to wait for any acknowledgement that the server heard my reset. I'm just done. At the same time, if I'm the server and I get a reset, I don't wait for an acknowledgement either. Not client or server. So here's something fun for you. Let's say I'm over here and I'm doing naughty stuff. So I'm doing BitTorrent. Okay, and we're sending out our stuff. People are sending stuff in and we're all excited. Okay, now there's lots of people around running BitTorrent and they're the ones I'm collecting stuff from. Okay, if my ISP doesn't like BitTorrent traffic, they have a router along the way, right? And all they have to do is look at the source and destination ports, and they just send a reset to both sides of the connection. There's no acknowledgement and the connection is just over. So your computer will just stop. It's like the person on the other end of the line just stopped immediately. And then, so once that gets reset, let's say it's between these two people. Where are we at? These two guys were exchanging traffic. So their connection is now reset. Put this in green. They have to open a new connection. So we have to go back to SYN, ACK, all that stuff again. Isn't that fun? So this is the way, just for example, that Comcast used reset when it wanted to limit BitTorrenting. They got in a lot of trouble for it. I put BitTorrenting, is that a verb? It's all right. They got in a lot of trouble for it, and then they came up with these rules about normal network management, and so they actually do something different. But there was a little while when BitTorrent was like the scum, or was perceived to be the scum traffic of the internet, and so an ISP like Comcast could just say, oh, I'm just going to stop this. Those people are scum anyway. And now they're like, no, that's where we download our Linux images, so you better not mess with our stuff. All right, well, this is fun. So that was a reset, not reset packet, reset. Oops, this is actually called a reset flag. Reset flag segments. They were just trying to stop it. So if you were on Comcast, by the way, while you were downloading, you would have this time where you would be able to get normal amounts of traffic until Comcast noted that you were doing BitTorrent, and then they would reset it. And so you'd have these little pulses. It was kind of fun to see people's traffic patterns. They're having a lot of fun. So that's a reset.